decided to keep everyone out of the doghouse. Rick's going to be recording today. Our intent all along has been to record these, put them on our website. That way people who can't attend can at least go to the website, watch it at their own leisure. So if you've got anyone in your association that had planned on being here and cannot, go ahead and let them know that after today's meeting, it will be on the website at some point. I don't know if it'll be immediately, but it will be up there sometime within the next 24 hours, I'm sure. And Rick, you can confirm how long it takes, just so everybody's got a good idea.
Yeah, I'll start uploading it as soon as I can. As far as how long it'll take to get done uploading, I do not know for sure.
Okay. Well, just everybody, like I said, if you've got somebody who planned on attending and cannot, let them know it's on the website. Just a little housekeeping. Make sure if you're on a phone and your computer, make sure both are muted. If you've got a comment, we are going to monitor the chat room again. But once again, this whole series, everything we're doing is about communication, is about talking. So we would prefer if you could ask a question so we can have a conversation about it. Just try to remember we are all on here, so there might be a little feedback. Listen for that delay before you ask the question and try not to speak over everybody. I think I've covered it all. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rick.
Good morning, everybody. This morning, we want to go over a couple of different things. In the mode of last meeting, when we were doing kind of a mechanics 101 type of thing for newer officials, we're going to continue in that vein a little bit with some discussion of onside kick mechanics. And then we're going to do some play review on that with Tony Rick. And then he is going to take over and do a session on reverse mechanics. So we're going to have a couple of different topics this morning. Basically, everybody should be able to see the Get It Right training screen now. And real quick,
she fell out of bed and banged her side of her eye.
Real quick, if everybody could mute their microphones for me. Basically, we're going to go over four-man mechanics for an onside kick for the newer guys, because most of what they're going to see right off the bat is going to be four-man mechanics. If anybody has any questions on the five-man side of things, we can take a look at that as well. Again, please mute your mics for me. Getting a lot of background noise. All right, so basically one thing we learned about Get It Right, the Get It Right training tool last time, was that the assignment of the officials is based, I think they said, on Alabama mechanics. For instance, and give me just 1 second. Okay, let's try that. I just went ahead and muted everybody because background noise. Anyway, looking at the tags on the officials, just bear in mind, like for instance in Illinois, things are going to be a little different. The umpire is going to be where the linesman is, and vice versa. But we can still discuss the responsibilities of those officials based on where they're at on the field, even if the official assignment is different in your area. So basically what we're looking at for the newer guys on the onside kick, of course, anybody out there, a newer official, want to tell me on an onside kick, what has to happen, first of all, for the kickers to be able to recover and maintain possession of the kick?
Has to go 10 yards.
Is that all it has to do? Anybody? What are the two requirements of a free kick that a free kick has to meet in order for K to get possession and keep it? New officials, please. Tony, I can't see the chat room, so if anybody's answering in the chat room, can you kind of monitor that for me? All right, anybody then, if not a new guy, anybody else, tell me what you have to have happen on a free kick for K to keep the ball.
It has to hit the ground and go 10 yards.
Yeah, who was that?
That's Delaney.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Or it could be touched by a receiver.
Right, there you go. So for if it's untouched by R, the ball has to go 10 yards and it has to touch the ground before K can get it. For onside kick, the mechanics are a little different than a regular free kick because of the obvious situation of an onside kick. If we expect it to be an onside kick, we're going to line up a little differently. Normally, we'd have a guy on the kickers, receivers, and then the other three guys downfield accordingly. With the onside kick, we're going to bring people up. And this is another thing that's discussed, done differently in different areas as far as who goes where. But I'm going to run through this real fast and just kind of show you, there's some things all stay the same. The line judge is still going to be counting the receivers as they come out. He's going to be talking to the receivers, telling them to stay back, keep the blocks above the waist, that type of thing. The linesman will be talking to the kickers, letting them know, wait for the referee's whistle, that kind of thing. All that stuff stays the same. What changes for us is, as you can see on the screen now, in a four-man, we've got 3 of the 4 officials covering the restraining lines. This is because we expect an onside kick, and there's going to be a lot of action within the first 10 yards of the ball being kicked. And we have 2 guys on the receiver's restraining line. Anybody want to tell me, any of the new guys out there want to tell me why we might have, instead of putting 2 guys on the kicker's line, why do we have 2 guys on the receiver's lines? What's the point behind that? Any new guy?
The receiver's restraining lines where the ball has to cross for K to get possession. It's one of the things, unless it's touched by R.
Exactly. So we need to make sure if at the end of the day, once that free kick is done and the play is over, did the ball get across the receiver's restraining line, or like it's been pointed out, did it hit a receiver, to player from the receiving team before K ended up with it, if they do. So looking at this setup, you can see, like, normally in Illinois, where the U is, that would normally be the linesman, and then where the L is, that would normally be the umpire. Without getting too, we'll talk about that later. All right, so basically at this point, if we just take a look at the responsibilities, first of all, any questions on the positioning? Anybody not understand why we're positioning the way we are on the onside kick? Any of the newer officials? Okay. So basically, if we run through the responsibilities really fast, prior to the kick, again, this is all the same as you would expect on a normal free kick. Referee's counting the receivers. It's going to signal the 2 deeper officials based on whoever they are in your state. The umpire, now in Illinois, the umpire's actually going to be, that position's going to be manned by the linesman. So the linesman is going to move to K's free kick line. He's going to check out the ball, point out the referee to the kicker, all the normal stuff, count K players, and he's going to communicate with the line judge, make sure they both have a good count, because we're not going to let the play run unless both teams are sitting there with 11. And then they'll move to the sidelines together. The linesman, again in Illinois, this is the umpire. He's going to be on the R's 40-yard line, opposite the press box. He's going to monitor the team bench. Basically, he's going to make sure the sidelines are clear on that side. He's going to count receivers and signal the referee. And the line judge is going to do his responsibilities as he would on the regular free kick. Count the receivers, signal the referee, move to the sideline with the linesman. Just like on a free kick, once everybody's in position, you're going to just kind of make sure that everybody's ready, hold your arm up, requesting the ready sign from the other officials, or the referee is. And when he sees everybody else is ready, he's going to sound his whistle for the ready to play. The rest of them are all doing basically the same thing as the free kick. Again, it's kind of repetitive, but I guess repetition is how you learn. The umpire, which in Illinois, again, is the linesman, he's going to be on K's free kick line, opposite the press box. He's going to, again, help make sure the restricted area is clear. Signal is ready with his arm above his head. And he's going to have his beanbag in his hand. New guy, any new, if actually anybody out there, why is it going to be important to make sure that the officials working the restraining lines have their beanbags in their hands, especially on an obvious onside kick?
First touching.
That's right. And just for the new guys, we covered this a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, whatever it was. But for the new guys or any new guy that wants to answer this, let's go over first touching again real fast. Who wants to tell us what first touching is?
A touch by K before it crosses the restraining line or before R touches it.
So untouched by R before it hits the R restraining line, or if it is touched by R and they touch it inside the before the restraining line, then first touching is off, because obviously they weren't the first one to touch it. R was. So the important thing there is that within the first 10 yards from where it was kicked and untouched by R, and we have basically first touching. Why is that significant?
Because if you have first touching, R retains possession of the ball.
Not necessarily. Well, I mean, that may be a true statement. We'd have to talk a lot about the scenarios, but why are we beanbagging that first touching? Why is that? What's the beanbag for? What's the significance of the first touching, and why does it matter if we bag it?
To mark the yard line where the first touching occurred.
Right. We need to know where that happened, because there's a few things that could happen once the play is over. And one of those things, depending upon how the play plays out, could be that we are going to give R the ball where K touched it. So there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out that would determine that. But there could be a point in time where we might have to come back to that spot of first touching and start the next play from there. One last thing that the linesman in Illinois would be responsible for is the official responsible for the 25-second clock. And he is going to help determine if the ball hits the ground when it is kicked.
Hey, just remember, everybody, first touching is not a foul. It's a point of reference, which is why we use a beanbag instead of a flag.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Why does it matter if the ball hits the ground when it's kicked? Anybody?
Do y'all have the pop-up kick rule?
Yeah.
We do.
Okay. So if it hits the ground, pops up, we use the top of receiver's head, then that's a foul.
Right. So if it comes off the tee, hits the ground first, and then bounces straight up in the air, it's kind of a funny way the rule's written. It kind of, I think it says something to the effect of like appears like a regular free kick. I forget exactly how it's worded, but it's kind of ambiguous as to how it's worded. But basically, if it comes off the tee, hits the ground first, and it looks like a regular free kick, so it looks like it went straight up in the air, then we've got a foul. Who wants to tell us what that foul is and the enforcement would be? Not to get too far off the beaten path of mechanics, but
It's an illegal procedure, 5 yards.
yeah, basically we're going to give him a 5-yard do-over, basically. The umpire, his mechanics are pretty simple. He's going to make sure the restricted area is clear and hold his arm above his head. That's why people like me are umpires, because not too much to remember. And the line judge, he's going to be on our free kick line on the press box sideline. He's also going to be clearing the restricted area. Hold his arm above his head, have his beanbag ready. Watch for infractions on our free kick line. So if we run through this again real fast, just run through the actual rest of the play. Okay, I don't know how well you guys could see that or not. There was actually first touching on that by Kay. Obviously, clear across the field, the guy on the end of the line came up and he reached out and he batted the ball. Not batted it, but he reached out to try to get it, and it hit his hand. So basically, once that kick goes, you got your linesmen's watching to make sure the ball does or doesn't hit the ground off the tees, making sure that it's basically a legal kick. Nobody's crossed the line. The line judge and the umpire are going to be watching receivers and the ball, make sure that if it goes 10 yards or not before touched by Kay. In this scenario, the play went out of bounds. If R had recovered the onside kick, they could pick it up and take off running with it just like a regular free kick, or they might, most often they just fall on it. But if they do pick it up and take off, your mechanics on that are going to be just like it was on a regular free kick. At that point, you're going to start officiating just like you would normally. So basically, the setup is different. The responsibilities are a little different at the point of the kick. Once the kick takes off, things kind of fall back into the normal pattern of a regular free kick scenario. Any questions on any of the stuff that we've talked about with the onside mechanics to this point?
Rick, I wanted to circle back to pop-up kicks real quick. Someone mentioned illegal procedure, pet peeve of mine. There is no illegal procedure in high school football. Number 2, pop-up kicks are a dead ball foul. If the kicking team drives the ball on the ground and it goes up and you feel it's a pop-up kick, shut it down. And finally, the philosophy for that, if everybody's wondering why is this illegal, because if the free kick is driven to the ground and popped up, it does not allow receivers to signal a fair catch. Whereas if you just pop it up in the air, much like a punt, receivers could signal a fair catch and be protected, have additional protections.
Good points, D-Ray. Thank you.
Thanks, D-Ray.
Hey, just a couple things more for everybody too. When we're talking about onside kicks, and I don't know how every other crew does this, but the whole thing is to have the communication. So we want to make sure we know, or we should be knowing the situation in the game where an onside kick could be imminent. We want to make sure we're communicating that to our crewmates. Our crew does it by, we basically take our beanbag out and shake it. So we're all alerting everybody that, hey, we could have an onside kick, because you want to make sure we're in position.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else have anything on the mechanics? Not a whole.
This is Delaney. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'm in Georgia. Do y'all use 4-man in varsity?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, good.
No, sir. The reason, and I put this in the chat box, is the reason we're talking 4-man today is basically the new officials.
Okay.
In our association are going to be working JV, JFL.
How many do y'all use on the varsity game?
5.
Okay. We use 6 and 7 in the playoffs.
You're luckier than we are.
That would be great.
I started with 5, but yeah, we've slowly escalated.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, I don't want to point anybody out, but somebody put in the chat box earlier that the ball had to bounce twice. And I don't, like, again, I don't want to call anybody out, but we do have some new people on here. I believe it was Daniel that you asked about that. Can you clarify where you think it needs to bounce twice?
Yes, sir. On most onside kicks, it's going to be a grounder going across. So to avoid the pop-up kick, one of the stipulations, I guess, or rule would be make sure it bounces at least twice to ensure that it's a legal kick and go 10 yards, a legal onside kick. Of course, another onside kick could just be where he pops it straight off the tee in the air and goes 10 yards without it even touching the ground. So, but the bounce twice was just something they always told us, like, make sure it bounces at least twice and then goes 10 yards.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's more of your internal mechanic as to make sure it's not a pop-up kick.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, problems, concerns with that?
I think this Rick. I think there's a little. Just some gray area as far as what we were talking about there, because at one point we made the term illegal onside kick versus pop-up kicks. In terms of legality, there's nothing anything about the ball having to bounce twice. But that, I think, is more of a reference, like Daniel was saying, towards maybe helping determine if it was a pop-up kick or not. In other words, if they drive the ball into the ground and it pops so high into the air that it travels, 15, 20 or more yards before it bounces again, that's a pretty good indication that we needed to shut that one down and have them re-kick it, because that went quite high off the ground, as opposed to with a pop-up, a kick where they drive it straight into the ground. If they drive it straight into the ground and it pops up and then it bounces again, especially within the first 10 yards of coming off the tee, then that's a pretty good indication that you didn't have a pop-up kick, and we should let that one roll. So I get the 2 bounce thing in reference to the pop-up kick. I just don't want anybody to come away confused at the idea that an onside kick has to bounce twice before K can recover it, because that just simply is not the case. It only has to touch the ground and go 10 yards. And it has to do both of those things. It's not either or, it's both of them. So if K were to kick it, 3 feet off the ground, 10 yards in the air, and somebody was fast enough to get down there and catch it from K, we do not have a successful recovery of an onside kick by K, because that ball never touched the ground. So it has to do both things, but it only has to touch ground once. The 2 bounce thing, I think Daniel might have been referencing to determining whether or not it was a pop-up kick or not. Anything else on the onside kick mechanics before I turn it over to Tony to do some play review for us?
Hey, Rick, this is Brian in Alaska, and something that we want to point out probably is that I think it's your linesman that covers the restraining line for the kicking team, that on a deep free kick, we don't nitpick that encroachment foul. For example, a guy who's maybe a hair beyond the free kick line as the ball's kicked, whereas during an onside kick, we want to treat that as a plane of glass, and we want to make sure that that is run perfectly. So on a onside kick, if anyone is beyond that free kick line, that restraining line for the kicking team, we always would kill that too and call that an encroachment foul.
That's a great point, Brian. Thanks. For the new guys, just to reiterate, on a regular free kick, if you've got the kickers and that guy is, barely across the line of their free kick line, you're probably gonna let that go. But on an onside kick, you're gonna, like he said, it's a plane of glass. Don't let them break it. No advantage should be gained there. And real fast, I stole this scenario from the NFHS Facebook page, the football officials Facebook page. And I brought it up because I thought it's a good thing to discuss, because with onside kicks, a lot of times they do go out of bounds. This is true. This scenario was written for a regular free kick, but the scenario fits. So real quick, you guys can see the screen. If the receiver catches the kick, and at the time that he catches the kick, he has 1 foot inbounds and 1 foot out of bounds. Let's just assume that he did not step out of bounds on purpose. He was just following the ball, tracking the ball, and as he caught it, he happened to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out of bounds. Anybody want to tell us what that would result in? What would the ruling be on that? Any new guy out there want to take a stab at this one? Anybody? Go ahead.
We've got one in the chat box says illegal touching. Another one says kick out of bounds, penalty on K. Another one says free kick out of bounds if touched unintentionally.
So we had one of them you said was illegal touching.
Correct.
Yeah. We just this is like house hunters. We're going to rule out one of the three houses right off the bat. We're going to rule out illegal touching. R has the right to touch the ball on that kick, and having 1 foot out of bounds doesn't make it illegal to touch it, so to speak. Especially since we've determined that it didn't step out of bounds on purpose. So the other two options, one of them was kick out of bounds, re-kick, and what was the other one, Tony? I'm sorry.
Both of them were free kick out of bounds.
Okay. So we had two people. Anybody? I mean, in the interest of time, I'm just going to let you know that is a free kick out of bounds, even though R is who was out of bounds when he caught the ball. It's still considered a free kick out of bounds. So what, and new guys, what would be real quick, what would be the options for R at that point?
Re-kick the ball with a 5-yard penalty.
That's one of them. There's when a free kick goes out of bounds, there's a few different options. Like on our go ahead.
Take the ball where it was out of bounds.
That's an option. So we can have moving back 5 yards, re-kick. We can take the ball where it went out of bounds.
We've got take possession at the 40 in the chat box.
I'm not sure where the 40.
Don't you have the option of taking it where it went out plus a 5-yard penalty?
Yep, that's one.
Yeah, attack the 5 yards on. As far as one of the options on the free kick out of bounds is to take it, 25 yards from where it was kicked. Obviously, when you look at these, you're just gonna give them the best option, basically. And if first touching is involved, if K did touch the ball, especially like on our free kick example, that's another option. They could take the ball and spot first touching. All right, so let's move on to some play review. I have to make Tony whoops, he's got it. Tony, do you have, can you share your screen? There you go.
There we go. All right. So before we get into this, I kind of want to give my general thoughts on free kicks first, and then onside kicks, and we'll go from there. So in high school, I was a back judge, so I always had the kicking restraining line. And I would go into every kick thinking this is going to be an onside kick, because I don't like to be surprised on a football field. And so I always had a beanbag in my hand, and I always treated it like it was going to be an onside kick. So there, when they do the surprise kicks, you're ready. And it's when you get caught off guard that's when you really start missing things. The gentleman that brought up the difference between an onside kick and a regular free kick with relation to kicking restraining line, one thing that I do is if I'm facing into the field and my right shoulder is the direction the kick is going to go, my left foot is planted on the kicking restraining line. And that means that I'm going to be straddling, I guess, the 40 and the 41. Or my feet will be on the 40 and roughly the 41. So I'm going to give them, because I'm looking straight down the line, an additional half yard. No, you're always going to have some dumb coach that's going to be standing behind you yelling, no, he's offside, he's offsides. And all you have to do is just politely say, Coach, do you want that ticky-tack foul called on you? And they're not going to say anything. Now, for an onside kick, or if I think that there's a chance that there's going to be an onside kick, and I'll usually get a good rapport with the kicker, and just to try to figure out what they're talking about when they go in their little huddle. That's when I will shift to where I'm straddling the kick and restraining line, and I am immediately looking for, does the plane of glass break? Another thing, I see way too many officials with either their toes in the green, if you will. On a kickoff, especially an onside kick, I want to take up as much of the white that's around the football field as I can. Some of these, you're going to have small schools that you're not going to be able to do that. But if you can get 2 yards off the field, do it. Create distance. The more distance you can have, the better you can officiate the play. But yeah, other than that, we'll talk about also. So if you have an obvious onside kick, and say you move up the guys, you have four officials in the box. If I'm on the kicking restraining line and the ball goes away from me, I'm going to be looking, does the ball go into the ground? That's the number one priority right there. And does someone go offsides? The next step is I'm going to try to pick up blocks, because it's hard to judge when someone touches it unless you clearly see it. But really help out on the blocking before they're eligible to. And then for the officials that are on the receiver's restraining line, if the ball is coming to you, you've got the ball 100%, and you have the first touching as well. I would not even be worried or looking for blocks unless it just clear as day opens up to you. But that is your number one priority, is that ball and who touches it first. And then also the opposite wing, the official on the receiving restraining line, and the ball goes away. You kind of got that whole view where if you see someone that looks like it's going to be a block, you can help out there. You can help out on first touching. But it's really knowing what your job is if it goes to you versus if it goes away. Does anyone have any questions on just kind of that thought process for me? All right. So then we're going to go ahead and watch some plays. If you want me to rewind a play, by all means, let me know. And funny that we talked about what we have so far. So I'm going to let it play through, and then we'll discuss. I think there's another angle on this. All right. Does anyone have any thoughts on the play? Let it play again. I apologize if it's choppy. Not much I can do about that. All right. Does anyone have any observations on this?
Hey, to confirm, the ball went 10 yards and appeared like 45. White touched the ball first.
I don't know if White touched the ball first, but I agree completely that it went 10 yards. Yeah,
It touched the
it goes
ground.
12 yards, hits the ground, and then Blue picks it up.
I would say it's a fair recovery.
Okay.
Was 13 offsides?
That's one thing I noticed. So for a normal kick, I would say he's not offsides. You know what I mean? Now, the moment that you realize something's up, they're trying to get that player down there quick, you got to really think quick and hard. Did he cross the line? And it looks like he probably did, would be my guess. Now, from this angle, if I can isolate this angle, let's see if you guys can pick this up. Anything else? Does the kicker pick it cleanly, or does he drive it into the ground? I don't know if you can see that or not, if it's too choppy. So if we assume that he picks it cleanly, other than the player potentially being offsides, I think it's a legal play. If you couldn't see it, it was driven into the ground by the kicker. So then, as we have said today, what is that foul? Because you could clearly tell how high that ball went. So I'll play it again. I'll let it load here for a second. Hopefully that'll help.
Is that just called
drives it into the ball. It was 12 yards. Does anyone think this is a pop-up kick?
Is a pop-up kick illegal? Only if it's driven to the ground, it's one thing. But if it's just popped up, is that actually illegal?
No, but I'm saying the kicker drives it into the ground right off the bat.
I have a question, and only because I use this play myself. In watching the slow end zone view, the ball appears to be rotating top backwards. So I question whether or not it was driven into the ground, but rather maybe it pooched up in the air.
Of course, it's not the best angle or video, but you might be right on that. I can't really tell completely if it was or
But
not.
The end zone view from here, if you maybe from your screen, ours might be a little choppy, but I think the ball is rotating backwards, meaning the top back as opposed to the top forward.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a good get. It just the way he kicks it just seems like, well, I guess it could be either one. So then that's where it's really that's probably going to be the back judge, and really the back judge only, if or whoever's on the kick and restraining line. You have to know whether or not that was driven into the ground or if it was picked cleanly. If it's picked cleanly and you rule that the guy was not offsides, you have a legal play, first down, blue. But yeah. So any other questions before we move on?
Hey, Tony, get back to that might be a flag if you're the wing and that guy's getting offsides, and then you realize it's an onside. You may not have caught it immediately when he broke the plane, but you still need to shut it down.
Yes, if you believe that he was offsides.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. I'll let this play through. This is just a choppy video anyway, so it's going to be choppy for you. You can clearly tell how old this video was by what they're doing.
We all
I don't know if we necessarily need to go over this play in extreme detail, but can someone just point out any issues they have?
An illegal formation to start with.
For what?
There's not four guys opposite the kicker on each side, minimum.
Okay. I would say that.
They also went behind the 40. You can't be more than 5 yards behind the ball.
Yes, that's correct. Now let's talk about that. Are they able? So if they were to do this and then reset with four people on each side, or at least four people on each side, does anyone have an issue with that? Say the play has been dropped in. Is anyone going to be calling that?
Yeah, because once you blow it in, the kicker is the only one that can move, correct?
I don't believe that it's the only one that can move. I don't think that's anywhere in the rule book. But
No,
once it's blown in,
it's the only one that could be more than 5 yards back from the kick K's restraining line.
right. So this is that's what I wanted to get to. But are you actually going to call that? That's just a general, depending on your association or who your conference or whoever is signing you, I guess it would be their philosophy. But kind of my philosophy on that is there's no harm, no foul. You're not getting an advantage. This is just where you're looking to get called ticky tack. I know every rule type of a foul, in my opinion. But if they just shift or what happens if little Timmy at the top of the screen is supposed to be at the bottom of the screen and he happens to take one step at 6 yards? Like, to me, it's not the spirit of the rule. And I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts on that, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents.
I agree. That's a talk, not a foul. No advantage gained.
Yeah, because the intent of the rule is to obviously stop people from, or stop players from getting, the 10-yard head start before the restraining line. So that's where I just want to point that out, that yes, by rule, it is a foul. But I would never call that.
Right, and just for the new guys out there, that is based on the idea that once they've moved from one side to the other and accidentally gone more than 5 yards, that they get reset before the ball's kicked. Just putting that out there for the new guys, because if they go in motion and they go 5 yards behind the free kick line and they stay in motion as the ball is kicked, now we do have an issue. But as long as they get across the ball, get set, and reestablish themselves as set, then yeah, we're not going to get them on that.
Yep, I agree.
Did the up back kick the ball? I mean,
The guy in front of the deepest player is actually who kicked it.
so then that's a foul.
Right.
Okay, so let's pause it right here. Let's assume that 82, I believe that's what you're saying, 82 kicks it?
I think 82 is who kicks it.
Okay, so in this situation, you would assume that the player that's standing between basically the 39 and the 40 is technically the kicker, if you will, if you ignore everyone else's positions.
Right.
So this is where, by rule, if you are lined up beyond 5 yards, you must be the one that kicks it.
Yep.
If no one's behind 5 yards, then anyone can kick it.
Tony, Wes wants to know what happens when the kicker picks up the tee and moves it to a different location.
That's for someone else to answer. I do not know high school rules that well anymore. What do you think, Rick?
That's another one of those things that I personally probably wouldn't care. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if there's an actual rule against that or not. It's been too long since I've actually worked a game, Tony.
David?
I thought once it was punched in or whatever, the ball couldn't be moved to a different location at that point.
I believe that is correct.
I'm looking up the actual rule. If you're talking about once it's chopped in, I'm not letting him move it.
Rule is 6-1-2. Once designated, K must kick from that spot.
There you go.
I was just right there with you, buddy.
Ooh, I wonder if I could have found that and get it right training.
But they can call timeout and move it then, correct?
Yeah, I think he can call timeout. If he decides he wants to kick from somewhere else, fine. But once he sets it, you chop it in. He's not going to go to the ball, pick it up, and move it.
Or you pray for a gust of wind.
When y'all say chop it in, you mean mark ready for play?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Sorry for the slang.
Illinois dialect.
We're a little too southern for that. Chop it in stuff.
And you guys are all welcome for me turning off the audio on this clip.
Oh, I thought it was great. I can listen to them talk all day.
It was just too long. This whole thing was like almost 5 minutes. So I had to chop it down and cut it out. So then the audio didn't make any sense anymore.
Are you able to see this all right, or is it still?
It looks pretty good on my end. It's still a little choppy. Of course, right now it's in slow motion, but it looks, I'm seeing it pretty well myself.
It's nothing like that first one. It's not as choppy. It's not as bad, but this one's a lot better, a lot smoother.
All right. All right. So anyone want to give their thoughts on this play? Go to the beginning of it. Find that. All right. 113. Go and take a stab at it.
wasn't any first touching, then Kay recovered and has the ball.
Yes, that is
Right
correct.
there.
So yeah, I can't see his number.
It's one of those three guys on the ground
Number 8, the ball hits his leg.
at about the 44-ish yard line.
Yep.
Does
Which
K
I have
block?
to
Does
admit-
K block before that touch?
Is I would say okay. Yes, they do.
Sure looks like a block in the neutral zone to me.
Is it? But what is it? What is the rule for blocking before it goes 10 yards? Are they not allowed to touch anyone?
K cannot initiate contact in the neutral zone.
Would
unless
you
the
say
ball's been
K
touched
is?
by-
Sorry. Would you say K is the one that's initiating the contact here?
No,
No, because
it's
our
suspect.
blocking in the back.
Absolutely, it's suspect. I think R is the one that initiates that contact.
It would appear that way to me too, as well.
Yeah, it's almost more collision than anything. It's like two people go to the same point. Not
Absolutely.
necessarily anybody was blocking each other. They more just collided than anything else.
Absolutely. So then, based on that,
Right there. Oh, number. What? I can't tell that number. 6.
Yeah,
maybe?
the guy that's on top of 8.
8. Yeah.
Where,
I
I
mean,
can't.
who initiated contact with whom? And we can dissect it all day long. The bottom line is the covering official has to decide who initiated contact. If K initiates contact inside the 10-yard belt and there's no touching of the ball, that's a foul.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I firmly believe that R is the one that initiates that contact, but that's just my opinion. So then the question is, so if the block's legal, what do we think about then the touching? Is he blocked into the touching?
If we're going to ask if he was blocked into the touching or not, we have to ask if it was R's block or the subsequent hit by the other white player, K player, that caused him to be moved into the ball. Because right as R gets there, another K player gets there as well. And it's hard to say. He may have been blocked into that ball, but it's hard to say if it was by R or K.
Yeah. So I thought this was a great way of explaining it, that they were talking about the block. And they said there's a difference between a player getting blocked into a ball actively versus passively. And the way I took that is, like, you think of like the punt play or just any kind of kick play where a ball's at rest, if you will, and you see the kid try to push someone into it. Obviously, you're going to ignore that touching. But if you're blocking and you're in the process of 8 is definitely blocking in this. Whether or not he initiated it or not, he's still blocking. So I think he's actively blocking, actively participating in the play. And so you're not going to ignore the touching on it. And that's what they're talking about in the clip as well.
And Tony, to your point, I also, when I listened to the whole thing, like I said, the whole thing was like 5 or 6 minutes long. And they discussed the active versus passive. I also took the active kind of to mean if it was a person who is actively going to attempt to get the ball as well, as opposed to just participating in the play as a blocker, like on a punt play, like you're talking about, a guy downfield whose only role is he knows he's not going to get the ball. He's going to block somebody from K to keep them from getting his returner. And that player gets blocked by K into the ball, we ignore it. But if that player on R or K, either one, is actively trying to possess the football and other action around him gets him knocked into the ball, I think we ignore. I think we don't look at that as being blocked into it.
Okay, let's
I
look
agree.
at both scenarios, because I mean, D-Ray could have seen that the K team was blocking. So let's run it that way. So if K is blocking before the ball goes 10 yards,
There you go.
then the ball touches him. What do we have?
you would have a flag on the ground for where he blocks. And then if you then have a subsequent touch before it goes 10 yards, you're going to have a beanbag down for first touching. And then you obviously keep officiating the play, and you would then either let them have the ball at the first touching spot, or you would have the foul.
Enforce the illegal. Real quick before we move on, Brian Hoskin in Alaska was wanting to know, in that particular play, it does appear that the wing on that side of the field may have been shielded from actually even seeing the action between the 8 and the player from R. So his question is who else might see that touching?
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next. This is very, very, very hard to get, because if you're on the opposite wing, I don't know how you necessarily can tell that the ball changes directions, or that you could be definitive in saying that it was touched. Now, I don't know, honestly. I don't know if you can get this right without like having replay, unless you just guess. I mean, if anyone has any thoughts on how you
can look in, but I don't know if the people running all the way through, if he's truly going to get a clear look at that or not.
Right. Maybe if you have 4 on the box up in the box like they do, the person on the kicking restraining line that it's going towards could have seen, maybe a ball change direction, or the way the ball is flying change, rotation. Other than that, I mean, it's just pray.
I think this is a good example of crew communication.
Hang on a minute. What was that?
I think that play illustrates the benefit of the crew coming together after the play and making sure all the pieces of the puzzle are witnessed. So I can come across and, hey, Purvis, did you see the ball touched by K? It looked like it from my angle. It's in your lap. Yes or no?
Great point.
And we kind of put all the puzzle pieces back together. There's a few elements in that play that we have to come to grips with. First was the block. Did K initiate? Yes or no? No. Okay. Next point is there a touch by K? That's the nugget of this play. If K touches it, then R gets the ball at that spot. We've touched on, pardon the pun, we've touched on a lot of elements in that play. To boil it down, we have to rule on the block. We have to rule on the touch. If we feel there's a touch, then there's that gray area of was he blocked into. I think we exhausted that. If K touched that ball, they own first touching. They didn't. It wasn't an inadvertent touch. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Definitely
that's
so.
one where you have to get together and talk that out. That's a very great point.
Hey, Tony, just go back through the fact that if R blocks K into that ball, you started talking about the first touching ignored. I'm just for the young guys, I want to make sure they're clear on that.
Say it again, David.
If R initiates that contact and blocks K into the ball, we're going to ignore that first touching because he was blocked into it.
Yeah. Assuming that that R is not actively or not. Maybe I don't want to keep beating that to death, but as long as, like Rick said, B's not trying, or R is not trying. Sorry, as long as K is not trying to
One of them damn
get
letters.
to the ball, yeah, or if they're blocking each other, you're going to ignore that. But if, say, they're just running down or jogging or standing, and you come and block them into the ball, you're not going to you're going to ignore that. All right, any thoughts on this while they will be getting together and discussing, and I think the referee had it made up in his mind before anything. So they rule illegal touching. Not illegal touching, but first touching. We'll run that back. It appears it bounces off the A player's head at the 50.
It's really hard to see.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very good point. If you do rule first touching, I believe they end up putting the beanbag in front of the 50. That is a good point. If you rule first touching, you better be sure you have that beanbag within the 10-yard belt. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this play? So I think they get the first touching wrong. I think it's legal touching. But I think there's another element that is the actual correct call. Does anyone want to take a guess?
Looks like K was being blocked when the ball hit him, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, but I think that he's definitely trying to either get in position to block someone or get the ball.
My video is really choppy. Was this kick hit in the ground and then it popped up, or was this a pooch?
It's a pooch, I believe.
That's what it looks like in the original clip.
Okay, it's a pooch that's coming down near the 50.
Yep.
Right, so KCI comes into my mind.
Yeah, I got kick catch interference.
Thank you for bringing that up. So, kick catch interference. 656. While any free kick is in flight in or beyond the neutral zone to the receiver's goal line, or any scrimmage kick is in flight beyond the neutral zone to the receiver's goal line, K shall not touch the ball or unless blocked into the ball, or to ward off a blocker, or obstruct R's path to the ball. Now, if we go back, if I can figure out this. The one to me that just stands out is, does the player obstruct R's ability to catch this ball? And I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
It looked like there's an R player that's in position to get there, and K obstructs his ability to get there. So then you would have KCI from that spot. So the big difference is you're talking 15 yards of field position. Of calling first touching versus KCI.
Right. So the question that got us to KCI was it a pooch kick, or did the ball get kicked into the ground and then bounce up? Tony, how does that change for the new guys? If it's a pooch kick and we have KCI, how does that change if the ball was kicked into the ground and then bounced that high?
Well, the kick would have been grounded as opposed to a kick in play.
Right. So can we have KCI if the kick has been grounded?
No.
There you go.
Not in high school.
Right.
So any other questions on this? They end up coming together, and at least I don't know who recovered the ball. I'm guessing Hay did. but at least they came together and did not award the ball
to K.
So if you're going to come through here, you're going to be talking through, okay, was the ball grounded or was it not? Where was it touched by K? Okay, then it's, well, if in reality, I think the gentleman at the top of the screen ruled that it was touched by K, or I don't know who it was, but touched by K before it went 10 yards. Well, I think that part was wrong. They just got lucky. But then I don't, who thinks, how could you work your way into getting KCI? That's the part of this play, is how do you work your way as a crew into KCI? So the official that comes in and covers the ball on the ground would have been able to probably help out on whether or not someone was in position to catch the ball, and then you would piece it together with the other officials that were up at the restraining lines. Yeah, there was someone there that obstructed his ability to get there. But I mean, they don't even get together and talk about that. I don't know if that even went into their head.
Yeah, I remember when I was looking at this clip, deciding whether to add it to the playlist or not. I kind of found it interesting that the white hat was in there, and it didn't. You can't tell what was going on, but it didn't look like anybody gave him any indication what was going on, and he just exited himself from the situation and
Right.
walked up to talk to the other two guys. So I think you hit on this earlier. I think he may have made a foregone conclusion on his own, and I'm not sure he even talked to his guys.
Yeah, I would agree on that. So that's where, if you are the I don't know necessarily what it would be, the H, I'm guessing would probably be the one that came up from the top of the screen. If you have a piece of information, if you are in your head saying, from my film study, I know that you cannot obstruct someone's ability to get to the ball, and I've seen it on an onside kick before, and you don't know if it was grounded or not. All you know is someone was obstructed trying to get there or trying to catch the ball. So then you have to insert yourself into that conversation if you have that pertinent information.
Absolutely.
So then if you find out from your back judge or whoever's on the K restraining line, it was not grounded. Boom, immediately there you have your KCI.
Yep.
But because they never got together, there's no way you could possibly call.
Well, Tony, that also goes to if you do think you have KCI, I'm going to throw that flag not knowing if it was grounded or not. So if I think I've got KCI, I'm going to throw that flag, and then I'm going to come to you, and you're going to say, no, the ball was grounded. If that's the case, then there is no KCI, so we can waive that off.
Absolutely. I would say it's the same thing as if I see a defensive pass interference, I'm going to flag it. But if you come in and say, no, the ball is tipped, I'm going to wipe it off. All right, let me rewind.
It's a cute little Pele soccer move.
Yeah.
Rewind it.
Give it to Cave real quick on that one for staying behind the line before he kicked it.
All right. Any thoughts on this one? I heard someone said something.
No, I'll go ahead. I when I first saw this, I mean, there's a lot of times on a free kick when the kicker's plant foot is technically offsides just because it's across the line before he kicks the ball. I mean, nobody's ever calling that. But I think I'd ding this guy for being offsides because he's doing such an unorthodox move.
Is the kicker able to?
Would that fall under, I forgot the phrase, intent to deceive? You know, is that what it would fall under, or is that how you're basing your judgment call on that one? Because me personally, I wouldn't call it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I don't think I would either.
And I may be reading this rule wrong, but in 6-1-3A, no player other than the kicker and the holder for a place kick may be beyond his free kick line.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I mean that is it right there.
There you go.
I thought that was a rule that I remembered. So then, I don't think that is any different than for the deceive part of it. I mean, that's no different than a play action, play fake.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna have anything there. I think it is a completely legal play. I don't believe K touches the ball until it goes 10 yards. Anyone see anything else in this play? Maybe about the 45-yard line fee. The top hash, 45-yard line.
And you got a first touch up there?
No.
Other 45.
Other
The
45.
receiving team 45.
Yeah, he takes his head off.
Yeah, I see that now.
That is 100% a foul. So why do we miss this? Look at the official at the top of the screen that comes in. He wasn't even looking there. All he's looking is at the ball.
Yeah.
So that's where you have to be able to extend your field of vision and pick that up. There's no rush for you to get in there. You already have the covering official that's coming up from K's restraining line. And whether or not you want to say, well, he had banana end or whatever, like that's fine if you want to nitpick on that. But there's no reason for that other official to come flying in like that and miss a foul, a player safety foul that you have to get.
Yeah.
Because that's not even just calling it a blindside block. That's just a complete cheap shot that's away from the play that's after the play. Those are the plays that you have to get. And so if you're going to officiate this correctly, if you're that official at the top of the screen, I mean, you can tell right there that
he ran right by it.
Stay with your keys.
Absolutely. And that just goes to show that is why they missed this foul. That official should be looking at that general area, not blocking up in front or who touches it. You got to be responsible for your area.
Recognize when the ball is not your responsibility. You guys nailed it. He ran right by that. If he was looking, even while he's running, he picks that up. He wasn't even looking there. He was 10 yards away from it and was looking at the pile.
It's almost hard to imagine how he missed it, even not looking at his keys, because there was nothing in his way. It was right in front of God and everybody, and he
I had a play.
He was so focused on the ball.
Yeah, I had a play that was like this year. Ball went away from me. I was on the opposite wing, and I cleared everyone. No one was a threat. No one was a threat. No one was a threat. And I moved all the way to where basically the ball was 50 yards away. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone peel back and just light someone up. And I was like, I missed it. And it was 100% where I should have been looking. immediately after the game, got on my phone, looked at the film, missed something exactly like that. And so it's just do your job. If your job is to look at a specific area, do it. As your crew's depending on that. Because if you get this correct and you say, hey, got the ball, and then we have a dead ball, personal foul on Kay, and move them back 15 yards, I mean, that could be a huge play in this game.
Absolutely.
And you've also set a precedence with all the players that you are watching. So it could be some preventative officiating as well.
You're going to have some coach that sees that.
Yeah.
And
well, it's easy for us to sit here now too, but I mean, even on film study, where were we all looking? We're all watching the ball, which I get it. It's film study. We assume there's going to be action around the ball, but I mean, none of us on here really picked that up either. So, I mean, it's a good point for all of us that even in film study, if that's your position, watch that position.
well, and it's also good to know is everyone else's positions and where everyone else on the field should be looking.
Yeah.
So that's where knowing if you're that wing coming up, you don't need to be worried about the blocks behind it because that's not your job. Your job is their first touching? Are the blocks legal in front? Is anyone offsides? Everyone else behind you has that responsibility to pick that flag up. And really, it also could have been the referee.
I was just going to say the same thing, Tony. Most likely could have been the referee who's that far away on a squib or an onside kick. I mean, his focus shouldn't be on necessarily the ball, but the players around the ball. I mean, maybe even the off wing, maybe even the offside official here too could have been scanning the field and picking that up.
I would be willing to bet there was 5. I don't know whether or not the gentleman on the 50 was looking at the ball watching, but that's his job. I think there was probably 5 officials ball watching on this. That's the only way that you don't get that.
Yep.
But let's say you are the opposite wing down, maybe you're at the 20 or you're the referee. The old adage, and we've harped on this, of don't fish in someone else's pond doesn't apply to a play like this. If you see something that's so egregious like that you have to get, I mean, anyone should get that.
As an old fisherman, you can fish in other people's ponds, but you best come out with a whale.
Great point, dear.
You can also notice that Kay, after he initiates the first hit, he's going after our second one. But I guess he finally hears the whistle or realizes whatever's going on. He backs off a little bit.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Good call.
So he was head hunting on that one. Regardless.
Gave it a brick.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell if he goes helmet to helmet there or if it's just helmet to chest or shoulder to chest. So I don't know if I don't think we want to necessarily start any of these, but this will be a good one for next time.
Yeah, we had a lot of great discussion on those plays. I only put 5 in there, but we spent close to an hour on them, talking about the onside kick and the mechanics around it. And my apologies to everybody in attendance because time management wasn't quite so as good on this one. Because we're not going to be, I don't see we're going to be able to get to the reverse mechanics at all. I mean, I have a hard out myself at 10 o'clock. So I think we save this for next time and lead off with it, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to add that if anyone has any plays that they want to go over or, an interesting play from their season or anything, by all means, let us know. That's for all of us to help each other get better. That's all I have, Rick.
All right. Anybody got any last minute comments, questions, concerns, anything at all?
Oh, this is Delaney. I was just going to ask, do y'all have the 2-yard buffer zone on the sidelines?
As in between the team and the sideline? Yeah, the team and the sideline.
Anybody, because we're required to work off the sideline, and there's a 2-yard buffer, and everybody, coaches, players, everybody's supposed to be behind that.
Yep, it's the same here, Delaney.
In theory.
Yeah,
Well-
a couple of our fields, there's not 2 yards between the sideline and the fence.
Well, we had a couple like that, but they said, well, then line all your players up in that 1 yard. But I mean, they've got all of it. We've had it for a while, so they've got it adjusted now.
Yeah, I always work off the field if I'm on the sideline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully by yard or I'll try to take a whole yard for me.
I mean, you know, with 6 officials, it's a little easier to do that.
Right.
Oh, what it would be like to have 6 officials.
Try 7 is glorious.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good point, though. Especially for the young guys. I mean, we're always stressing stay off the field, stay off the field. That's a good point. I mean, it's safety for you, plus it also makes sure the coaches are behind you where they should be, and players.
Well, I appreciate y'all letting me join you for this. How often do y'all do this?
About twice a month right now. We're kind of on an every other week rotation. But it depends. I mean, we may end up doing one in the middle of the week, so just stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all for it. I can do this every day. I'm always willing to
We
learn,
could
so.
too. We appreciate that. We really do. We really do. Hey, and Rick and Tony, first of all, guys, thanks for putting it together again. Good subject matter, good discussion. Thanks everybody for the discussion. We're doing this just so we can keep talking football. None of us know the answers. None of us know them all. Trust us. We do not know. So for you young guys out there, old guys alike, D-Ray, thanks for chiming in today, especially. Remember, we're all here to learn. We put this together just to have a format for all of us to discuss. So if you're sitting there and you don't think something's right or it doesn't quite sound right, please chime in, because we could have effed it up. It's a distinct possibility that we could have effed something up. So feel free to voice your concerns, voice your comments, voice your opinions on something. And if you got a little different mechanic or a little different way or a methodology that is done by your crew, bring it up. Let's talk about it. That's what we're all here for, is to learn.
Absolutely. And one last final thought from me, especially for the new guys. We asked you guys, directly to answer a few questions today, and I know that puts you on the spot, but don't be afraid to throw out an answer. Even if you just think it's what you should do and you're not 100% sure, nobody's gonna make fun of you. Nobody's gonna tease you. You're not going to get ridiculed for getting it wrong. And I'll use myself as an example. When Tony asked about whether or not that guy was offsides when he spun around and kicked the ball, I said, yeah, I'd ding him. And then I got told a few seconds later, based on that rule, that I would have been wrong. And that's fine. Now I won't ever forget that situation again. And so answer the questions, throw out your ideas, even if you're not 100% sure, because you're not going to be ridiculed for it. And who knows, you might actually get it right.
Just to echo you, Rick, being wrong in an environment like this stings a hell of a lot less than being wrong on the field.
No, hell yeah, it does. I'm going to start writing your stuff down, D-Ray.
Right? Is that why you call me old, Dave?
I wondered if he heard that.
That was a good one.
All right, guys.
It's better here than it is on Hulu.
Yeah, much better.
Hey, for you guys who could not, or had people that couldn't attend and they want to see it, remember Rick will have it on the website sometime within the next 24 hours. So if you don't see it immediately, give us till maybe Sunday afternoon. It should be up there.
Now, which website are y'all talking about?
www.ecifoa.com. It's our association website.
Yeah, can you put that cover page up there for the presentation?
Can I?
All right. It's in the chat. Ooh, look at that face.
Thanks, Bill. Bill, put it in the chat room, you guys. www.ecifoa.com. I'll get the recording uploaded sometime this weekend. And you can share it with whomsoever you please. Because, like I said, the more people that see it, the more people that learn. Maybe they'll tell us something we got wrong. I got to go, guys. Thanks very much. I'm going to sign off of here. I'm going to stop the recording. So if you say anything genius after I get off here, write it down. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, guys. See you later. I got to go as well. Stay safe.